But this NARS palette. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Beth, and today's video is another in my kind of 12 days of palette series is what I called it, where I'm trying to get through all the palettes I picked up at the end of 2024 because everything kind of released at once. So I will have a playlist if you'd like to check out the palettes I've already covered. But this NARS palette did release, I want to say in November. It was kind of a weird pre-release in a way, and I think some press releases said it was coming out in March. So the color story does go a little bit spring in my opinion. So anyway, that is what we are going to be talking about today. I think this now has been released at all of the kind of major NARS retailers that you would expect. So the way that I've been structuring these videos is I do up-close swatches, I do a demo, and then I give you my thoughts and let you know whether I think you should pick it up. So, according to NARS, it says, discover a dreamscape of color inside a new palette with 9 striking eyeshadows. Feel the lavender haze, is that a Taylor Swift reference? All over your gaze, with smooth mattes, high shine shimmers, and reflective glitters in orchid, rose, and tan tones that build and blend for ethereal eyes. Pure eyeshadow pigments deliver rich, high-impact color in one stroke, while velvet soft texture applies effortlessly for an even layer of color that lasts. And this retails for $49. So it seems like more people than usual have talked about this palette. So I don't know if that's because I was interested in it and I just observed more. But I think the last palette that kind of got this level of attention, or at least that I was super interested in, was the NARS Climax palette. Unfortunately, a lot of NARS palettes are limited edition, which is a real shame because this was a really beautiful color story, great for fall. So it's a shame that palettes like that aren't permanent. I do really like this packaging. I do wish that it was magnetic. I think that would feel a little bit more luxurious, but it does have a nice big mirror and it does stand upright. So let's go ahead and dig into the swatches. All right, so let's do some quick swatches here. So it does have the shade names on the back in case you wanted to keep track of those. But let's go ahead and dig in. All right, so the first row here we have Love Me Not is a pearlescent glitter, like so. Sweet Nothing is a champagne silver glitter. And these are, I think, on the thinner side. Unwritten is a matte sepia. And that one has a little bit more texture as a matte. You can see there's a little bit of kind of kick up with that matte shade. So that's the first row there. Okay, so the second row we have Haze is a matte orchid. Feeling It is a rose and teal glitter. I think this is the row that really caught people's attention. And then No Lies is a shimmering mink brown. So that is the second row there. And then finally we have Take You There is a shimmering plum. Honeymooner is a glittering rose. And Follow Me is a deep matte aubergine, which is the British word for eggplant. Yeah, a little bit of fallout on some of these, but I think in general they all swatched pretty nicely. All right, so let's zoom in a little bit here. Yeah, I think there's just a touch of that matte brown that got into that shade. All right, so that's gonna do it for the swatches. All right, so I wanted to film a little insert on my phone here. I'm filming in natural kind of overcast daylight for what it's worth, because when I was watching the footage back and editing it, it really struck me how at least a couple of these shades were pretty close to some of the Urban Decay Moondust. So I wanted to do a little bit of a swatch comparison for you, just in case that changes your opinion of the palette. So in particular, I'll swatch these. So that's kind of the icy white and more of the kind of beigey champagne shade. And then this one right here, I don't know that that one's going to be as close, but in particular, I wanted to swatch, this is Cosmic from Urban Decay. I now have all of the current Moondust shades anyway, so if you have any comparison requests, let me know. I don't think shade-wise those are identical, they're really close. This one, I think the Cosmic one is a little bit kind of brighter, but I think I already swatched this, but the Space Cowboy shade, that's Wild Dipper, is quite close, I think, to this shade. So they both have that kind of like darker champagne base with silver glitter. So I thought that was quite interesting. I also thought I would maybe compare Solstice is the kind of duochrome shade here. I think this one, it's not too far off. A little bit more of kind of a darker burgundy base in Solstice maybe. But yeah, formula-wise, they're not too far off. So the other kind of metallics in this palette, I think, are all going to be the more kind of traditional metallics. They're not glitters. So anyway, I just wanted to include that in case it's helpful to anyone. And I think with that taken into account, I talk later about how the Natasha Denona Roxa palette might be perhaps a better buy if you're just interested in like a purple palette. But if these Moondust dupes kind of sell it for you, if you don't already have these Urban Decay shadows, these retail for, I want to say, about $24 a piece. So in that way, you are getting, I guess, a good bang for your buck. These are each 1.8 grams per shadow. So you might be getting less, not too far off, 1.7 grams in the NARS. So actually a comparable amount of product. So if you were interested in these shadows anyway, then yeah, maybe this would be a good buy, and you just have that added purple and some other shades you could dip into. If you already have the Urban Decay, or maybe even some of the dupes on the market, because as we all know, the Moondust have been duped over and over. We have the e.l.f. ones you could pick up if you just want that effect, those shadows with a lower price point. The three shades I mentioned are ones that e.l.f. has more or less duped. So we have White Hot, Champagne Showers, and Straight Fire. And I do have a video swatching these next to the Urban Decay, so I'll maybe include a little snippet of that. There's also the ColourPop Super Shock and Ritz, which is also pretty affordable and which is also a very popular Space Cowboy dupe. So yeah, just some things to consider. I just want to give you as much information as I can to help you in making your purchasing decisions. So let's get into the demo portion, I guess. All right, so back for the demo. So I do want to use the purple shade. Ideally, I think I would probably pair this with another palette because some of these matte shades just look a tad dark. But I think in general, NARS formulas tend to be a little bit softer. So let's go ahead and dig into this purple matte shade. And I already did apply my Fenty primer, and I set that with the Charlotte Tilbury powder. So let's apply this to the lid. I also used the NARS Light Reflecting Foundation. I dug that one out, and I kind of forgot how good it is. So if you have that in your stash and you haven't worn it in a while, you might want to pull it out. It's not the most hydrating foundation I have, but I really like the finish and the level of coverage. So I applied that, and then I also used one of the new NARS blushes in the shade Behave, which is really beautiful. Really nice, soft mauve shade, like so. So at least some of NARS formulas are permanent. So I'm not really having any issues with this shade, which is great. Purples can sometimes be a little difficult to formulate, but I think that blended out nicely. And then I'm going to take, that was the Sonia G Classic Crease. I'm going to take the Mini Booster from Sonia G, and I'm going to go into this shade down at the bottom and deepen up the crease. I think this one has a tiny bit of shimmer in it. It's been a minute since I filmed the swatches. And by a minute, I mean several days. I have to change my whole camera setup, so it can be a pain to do both parts next to each other. So this is not as easy for me personally to apply, just due to kind of the depth of color. I wish NARS had committed a little bit more to like a cooler toned color story. I'm gonna go back in with that Orchid shade and blend. It is nice that they do have some deeper mattes for depth and everything. And I realized that when you only have 9 shades possible to play with, sometimes you have to sacrifice those kind of intermediate matte shades that help you complete a look. I'm going to, why not? I'm going to put some of that Orchid color on the bottom because I think really that's the color that got people's attention. I don't often do super colorful looks. So then using a Rephr 28, I'm going to start off with that metallic shade in the corner and again have some depth and opacity, and I do see some fallout here. That was just a dry brush, by the way. So I did powder my face, so that brushes away easily enough. And then I'm just gonna have to swatch these again because, like I said, I forget forget what I thought of them. So some of them I think have a little bit more impact and opacity. Okay, I think what I want to do next, now that I've swatched those, I'm going to take that pink shade down to the bottom and apply that to the middle part of the lid, kind of a gradient effect. And then I'm going to apply that white in the inner corner, keep things a little bit more ethereal and sparkly. And then I'm going to take that duochrome shade in the middle. So I've basically used all of the shades save those 3 in the corner. And I'm going to apply this all over the lid to give it more of that duochrome effect. All right, so I think I'm gonna leave it there. I'm not sure I can really do a whole lot more. I mean, I can take some of this white maybe. Start to lose a little bit of the color if I do that. All right, yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. So I'm gonna hop off camera and do my liner and mascara, and I'll be back to tell you what I think. All right, so we're back. So I used the Victoria Beckham Satin Kajal eyeliner in Fig, trying to make the eyes a little bit purple. mascara as usual, and then it took me a while to kind of settle on a lip combo that I felt flattered this look. And what I ended up with was the Charlotte Tilbury Pillow Talk Fair Liner and the Revie Beauty Effortless Lips in Peony. So I'll have everything linked down below. Those are affiliate links, so thank you in advance if you choose to use them. But yeah, let's talk about this eye look. So would I recommend this palette? Not necessarily, and let me explain why. So as you can see, there is some fallout on my cheeks, and that is partly to do with how I applied it and I guess the amount of layers and everything I tried to build up. So I will admit to that. If you want to avoid fallout as best you can, you always want to do your eyes first and then do your base. So that's not a total deal breaker for me, but it's not ideal. And one, I guess, personal preference thing of mine is that if I am going to have a smaller palette, I like it to be kind of as everyday and travel friendly as possible. I would ideally pair this with a neutral matte palette and maybe just dip into this palette for like that orchid shade or some of those kind of metallic-y ones. Again, having those kind of matte, darker matte shades, the warmer ones, they don't really do anything or add anything for me personally. Of course, you may feel differently. Yeah, I think there's just, for me personally, limited utility for this palette. I think I created a pretty look, but it's not a look I'll really try to recreate anytime soon. The Natasha Denona Roxa palette is still on my list of palettes to film this kind of video with, and I know a lot of people just got that palette in their Beautylish Lucky Bags this year, so yeah, keep your eyes peeled for that review, and maybe I'll do some side-by-side comparisons, because if you are interested in a purple palette with some kind of, you know, metallic glittery toppers, you may be better off picking up the Natasha Denona. And price-wise, they're not too far off. I think it's about a $20 price difference, and you are getting 6 more shades in the Natasha Denona versus the NARS. I tend to prefer, is that as open as I can get it? I tend to prefer Natasha Denona's formulas anyway. And there are still some kind of warmer shades in this palette, which is interesting looking at them side by side. And of course, the Natasha Denona has the added benefit of being easily depottable. So you can combine a few palettes to kind of create your perfect everyday palette, or you could just pop them out and put them in a smaller magnetic palette if you want. So yeah, so I just don't know that this is like the best bang for your buck, so to speak. I would definitely recommend waiting for some kind of sale. The Sephora sale is going to be a while off yet. I don't know if NARS will run any kind of friends and family sales, but yeah, I would definitely encourage you to wait. And this is limited edition, so you kind of have to play that game of how bad do you want it versus do you want to wait to see if it goes on sale. I think this palette that I mentioned was popular, but it did, I think, hang around for a while, and I think eventually did go on sale. So just something worth considering. But yeah, the packaging is cute, so there's that. So I hope you guys found this video helpful. If you did, make sure to like and subscribe, and stay tuned for that Natasha Denona video. I hope you guys are all doing well and staying safe, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.